Aloha from the beautiful Big Island of Hawaii. I'm Kori Gaila, and this is Let's Talk About Health. I'm so happy that you decided to join me again this week. I haven't filmed for a couple of weeks now. We had a hurricane, and then I was dealing with technical difficulties, and we are in a pandemic. So with my lack of tech savvy and the fact that I'm on an outer island and we're in a pandemic, it's not a super simple fix. So I am hoping that my sound quality is better this week. Fingers crossed, we will see, but I'm hoping that we're getting these things resolved. And I do really appreciate your patience with me. My intention is to bring you good and interesting content every week, so that's the goal. While I had this 2 weeks, I kind of talked to a few friends and tried to get some feedback on the show. And this is a work in progress, and we are designing the format as we go. So one thing I do want to put out there is that I really would like to have a question-answer time with my audience. So please feel free to email me any questions you have about health or well-being, holistic lifestyle. My email is Kori@KoriGaila.com. Kori@KoriGaila.com. I will look for your questions and I will do my best to answer them for you and do the research if I don't have the answers off the top of my head. Also, please visit me at my website, www.KoriGaila.com. That's www.KoriGaila.com. I have some articles, some videos, just lots of information there. And I was so happy. My friend Deej put together a beautiful commercial for me, and he is the designer of my website. He and his great team at AME Studios. Thanks, guys. It looks great. So I have to just give them a shout out and say thanks for the great work, guys. So moving on from that, so a friend of mine did suggest to me that since I've had a very unique life with lots of interesting adventures, it might be a nice idea to share little stories with you guys before we get into our content a whole lot. So this week's topic, we're really talking, everything is really about holistic mindset with me, holistic health, holistic lifestyle. What does that mean? That is that body, mind, spirit integration, right? So today we're going to be talking about organic farming and permaculture, organic foods and nutrition, a little bit about nutrition. And so I grew up with two wonderful grandmothers. That one had a lot of fruit trees and a little garden, and then my grandmother in Oregon, I remember she had this big beautiful garden, and that was just my favorite summertime place. I would water the garden, and we'd go berry picking, and we'd make juice and popsicles and preserves, and I learned all of those beautiful kind of forgotten arts and practices that used to be so common. And I just have wonderful memories of being in the garden with bare feet and eating, snap peas off the vine, and it was just a wonderful, magical time. And my dad was quite a gardener as well, and so I spent, being an only child, so much of my time in the backyard with the animals and the critters and the cats and the dogs and the multitude of animals that I told my mother had followed me home from, walking to school or home from school, even if it was a lizard, it followed me home. But she humored me, and so I got to keep all of my critters. And my other favorite thing was always to just be in the garden, and I would be clipping plants and potting plants and planting seeds, and I just remember it as being just a very magical time for me as a child. I could really relate to that connection between the animals and between the plants. And so that really kind of formed a lot of who I am today. One of my first jobs was in an organic, like vegetarian juice bar right down by the beach. So I had this little scooter as a teenager, and I had surf racks. I'd put my board on the side and I would just buzz down early in the morning and surf by the pier, and then park in the back. And I just remember this adorable woman who owned the shop, and she had a bunny rabbits in the cages behind the restaurant. And this was actually in San Diego, down by the beach where I grew up, and great memories. But I do remember in 1988, it was a big deal. There was a boycott on grapes, and that really made an impression. That was when I really started to become this advocate for organic foods. A lot of farmers were dying from cancers from pesticides that were being sprayed on the grapes, and so that was kind of a really big deal. Of course, organic food goes really beyond just not using pesticides or herbicides, and we're going to get a little bit get into that a little bit today. Okay, so moving on. So yes, my background, right? So my master's degree is in behavior science, and then I am a holistic health practitioner. But also, my undergraduate work is in philosophy with an emphasis in Eastern thought. However, I do have that Western background, and so that becomes very fascinating because you can see how our modern world was shaped and formed by these philosophical ideas that really set the tone and the precedent for how we view the world. It really is that big. So getting into our origins of our current medical model, our current Western approach to things, which is starting to shift a bit. I got to take us to Descartes in the early 1600s. And this mechanistic model, although he was a dualist, there was this idea of, that separation of mind and body. I think, therefore I am. This substance that he would talk about that acted on the body, right? But definitely this separation, that the mind and the body were separate things, right? Mind being thoughts, emotions, feelings separate from the body, right? Holistic is this idea that everything is integrated, okay? But this model of mechanistic thinking really led to this idea that our bodies are like a machine, right? And, like an automobile. I mean, a lot of this industrial revolution and this idea that we can, everything is mechanical, and if we just break it down into the parts, we can, better understand it, right? And so we get all these specialists in medicine, your heart specialist and your brain specialist, and as though these aren't integrated systems, right? But the body is this beautiful integrated system. And that actually expands outside of that into everything around us, right? Everything's this integrated system. Everything is interconnected, right? So it's this idea that although one of my biggest missions is to promote health freedom, individual sovereignty as a being, right? My self being a sacred being, what I do affects those around me, right? So I have my own personal freedom, and when my own personal freedom expands out beyond me, my personal freedom needs to not infringe on other individuals' personal freedoms, right? And that's where this balance becomes really essential. Understanding everything around us. And so that goes into farming practices, right? There's a symbiosis that exists with the plants, with the soil, with the animals, with the environment. And all of these things work together, right? So that everything is an extension of everything else, right? So I'm getting really philosophical here. I'm gonna go ahead and rein myself in a bit because I can go off on a tangent for sure. But bringing us back down to earth. So this idea of the dualism that Descartes really believed in, but then this mechanistic view of the world, right? The mind, body are separate and losing that interconnectedness, right? But we're not a machine, right? We're not a machine, we understand that. And so when we think about holistic farming, permaculture, organic farming, we are taking into consideration that interconnectedness and that relationship that we have within a biome, within a biosphere, and how these things play off of one another, right? So, growing up with that, one other little story, did seek out utopia and ended up living in a few farming communities around the country. So I will share that story with you another time. That was a very interesting and exciting story, but I did have my time cooking for hundreds of people on farms and working in the farm and digging in the dirt and planting lots of yummy food and making cheese and all sorts of cool things that a lot of people don't experience. So I feel very blessed to have had that as well. Okay, so moving on to organic food. So organic food is not just about pesticide and herbicide, okay, it's to be raised without synthetic pesticides, bioengineered genes, which are GMOs, petroleum-based fertilizers, and sewage slug-based fertilizers. No, thank you. Organic foods are highly regulated according to the USDA. A farm or business adopts organic practices, selects a USDA accredited certifying agent, and submits an application and fees to the certifying agent. The certifying agent then reviews the application to verify that the practices comply with the USDA organic regulations. An inspector conducts an on-site inspection of the applicant's operation. The certifying agent reviews the application and the inspector's report to determine if the applicant complies with the USDA organic regulations. The certifying agent issues an organic certificate. So that is a very arduous process. It's an expensive process. You may pay a little more for your organic food. Again, I believe in market supply and demand, so the more the demand for organic food, hopefully the greater the supply, and maybe see a little reduction in price. I never ever would have guessed that I would see organic food in big name grocery stores, and today we do. So that's awesome. I remember just being in a funky little hippie food co-op way back in the day. Yeah, so that was awesome. I'm going to go ahead and take a quick break so we can hear a word from our commercial sponsor, and I will see you in
Visit KoriGaila.com and schedule your wellness consultation to receive a custom-designed, scientifically sound behavior action plan that is holistically based. Browse the website and enjoy free articles and valuable health and beauty information. Receive your free holistic skincare ebook, KoriGaila.com.
Many people are searching for answers to health challenges. There are natural solutions for a healthy and empowered lifestyle that can be delivered right to your door. Email Carol at carolbirchwell.com and type Health with Kori in the subject line to receive a free ebook on essential oils. Visit carolbirchwell.com and connect with Carol via email for your free ebook. She will help you find the natural solutions that work specifically for you.
Coming back from the break, I just wanted to do a little brief history lesson on 1988. That was when Cesar Chavez went on a hunger fast to seek an end to pesticide use. According to thecrimson.com, in 1988, 12 million pounds of pesticides were used on grapes alone in California, and 1/3 of those were known to cause cancer. In 1991, when this article was written, at that time, 6,000 farm workers had died. In an article by UCSD Libraries, written by Pat Hoffman, it states that there's the average age of death for farm workers is 49 years old. And that's due to job accidents, respiratory disease, and pesticide poison. So that respiratory disease, that pesticide poison, that often pesticide poisoning presents as cancer in individuals, okay? So not just pesticides, moving on to GM, genetically engineered, bioengineered seeds, or GMO, genetically modified organisms. I think it's organisms. Okay, so I hear a lot of people talk about hybrids, and farmers have been, creating hybrids forever, right? We can think of grapefruit. It's a cross between a pomelo and a sweet orange, right? But these are kind of the same species. We're talking about the citrus family, right? We're not going interspecies. We're talking about plants, and plants that might naturally hybrid, right? Because there can be a cross-pollination, and then you can come up with a whole new variety of something, right? But this is a natural process. When we're talking about genetically modified organisms, we're talking about, or bioengineered, we're talking about actually tampering with the genetic makeup of these creatures, right? Of these plants, of these living beings. So we're tampering with the DNA, or the genetic information inside of the seed, right? We're altering the DNA. Okay? The combinations that GMOs are producing are not probably going to be found in nature. So that's where a lot of this controversy is, okay? So for example, transgenic, which means cross-species, black widow spider. The silk protein is nice and tight and tenuous. And so the BBC reports that US scientists began injecting black widow spider silk protein into tomatoes, hoping that the seeds would take on that constitution, that consistency of the black widow spider silk protein. Interesting. So tobacco has a Hep B virus surface antigen produced in transgenic tobacco, which induces an immune response when injected into mice. Yummy. Oral vaccines are in maize. Isn't that exciting? So there's a fusion protein from Newcastle disease virus expressed in corn seeds that induces an immune response when fed to chickens. Isn't that great? So yeah, there's some immune response going on with some GMOs, putting some vaccines into the seeds that end up in the food, and I don't know, autoimmune disease? I can only speculate. That sounds like it could be an interesting thesis. So then you do hear a lot of this, the Terminator seed, okay? And it sounds very ominous, and I do have to point out that this is one of the things that people use this term Terminator seed, okay? It's not, a sterilization program or anything like that. What it does mean, though, is that the seeds that come from these particular fruits and vegetables are self-terminating. They will not germinate. You will not be able to take a tomato seed from a GMO tomato that has a Terminator seed, plant it, and get a tomato plant that will produce tomatoes, okay? So you're basically taking the fertility of the plant, right? You get that one yield, that dies, those seeds are not going to produce food again. You can see where that idea of food freedom, right? So for me, again, getting back to liberty, getting back to freedom, food freedom. I believe it's a God-given right to be able to grow food. So when we start tampering with seeds, yeah. So can GMOs be patented? Yes. In 1980, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled in, ruled that genetically altered life can be patented. So anyone who buys GM seeds has to abide by certain restrictions. So what does that mean? Well, it means a lot, right? Basically, those seeds are owned. Where we get into trouble, like if you're thinking about commercial farmers and you think about what we just talked about with becoming an organic farmer and the arduous process and how tenuous it is and how much work it is and this maintenance we have, sometimes we can get into cross-pollination problems, right? So if you have a nice organic farm and then next door you have a GMO wheat field or something, the wind blows, the birds carry seeds, insects pollinate. Pretty soon you have this cross-pollination, you have seeds that have been dropped in the field. The next thing you know, that organic farm is no longer organic. It's been contaminated with these GMO seeds, and technically you don't own the rights to the seeds. If they're patented, I don't know. Yeah, we're getting into sticky territory, and so there's ethical questions that come up with these types of things, because this is one of those things where, yes, we have our freedom, and yes, we want freedom, and yes, we want liberty, but is our liberty, is our freedom extending out and impeding on the freedom of those around us, right? So how can we have freedom when our freedom is taking away another person's freedom? And that's where we get into these ethical dilemmas, and that's another philosophical rabbit hole. Okay, so I am very excited to have our guest on this week. We're going to go ahead and take a quick break, hear from our commercial sponsors, and I will be right back with our guest.
Visit KoriGaila.com and schedule your wellness consultation to receive a custom-designed, scientifically sound behavior action plan that is holistically based. Browse the website and enjoy free articles and valuable health and beauty information. Receive your free holistic skincare ebook. KoriGaila.com.
Many people are searching for answers to health challenges. There are natural solutions for a healthy and empowered lifestyle that can be delivered right to your door. Email Carol at carolbirchwell.com and type Health with Kori in the subject line to receive a free ebook on essential oils. Visit carolbirchwell.com and connect with Carol via email for your free ebook. She will help you find the natural solutions that work specifically for you.
Okay, I'm back with my guest. I have my good friend Dash here from KUHR, and he is the co-founder and director of Hip Ag. Welcome so much. Aloha.
Aloha. So thrilled to be on the show today and get to share.
I feel so happy to have you. So we've been talking a little bit about organic farming and food freedom and really what that means to our health. And so first, I'd love to know a little bit about you. How did you get started in this field?
Yeah, when I got out of high school, suddenly I realized oh my gosh, I'm getting sick all the time, and it inspired me to start eating a healthy diet. I got involved with a local food cooperative, and that sent me on a journey of healthy eating, gardening, and then I eventually came to educate others about the benefits of gardening and healthy eating.
Yeah, but you do a lot more than just gardening. So this has been a long journey. And so tell me a little bit about your your foundation, or it's a nonprofit organization, excuse me. And so it's called HIP Ag, but that is short for?
Hawaii Institute of Pacific Agriculture. It's a nonprofit organization based in North Kohala on Hawaii Island, the Big Island. And our mission is to practice and teach regenerative agriculture. So we have a 26-acre farm that's basically our farm and campus that we invite youth and adults to the land for a variety of educational programs. We served 1,000 youth last year in our area, which is like pretty much all the children.
Yeah, so Kohala is on the north part of the island. It's a beautiful area, and I actually met Dash through some friends. I used to buy milk from him. They used to have a big dairy for a while, but you're not doing anything with dairy right now, I guess.
We actually have a cow and milk right now, so we are milking. I milked the cow this morning.
Yay!
But we're going to be drying her up here soon.
All right,
Yeah.
Awesome. So tell me a little bit, so I was talking earlier a little bit about permaculture, organic farming, the differences between the two, and it's really so much bigger than, just not using pesticides, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really trying to kind of share the information that it actually, it's so healthy for the land itself, for the soil, for regeneration, for our health, and nutrient density and things like that. So maybe you can elaborate, we've had a long journey and you've learned so much over the years. What is if you would talk about like a theme with organic food or with permaculture, what would kind of that theme be?
Yeah, I think organic is beautiful because it's no spray, no pesticides, but it's really about regenerative agriculture. Sustainability is not going to work for us anymore. We can't sustain where we're at currently. We need to actually regenerate and improve the soil. And the science is there now that organics are more nutritionally dense. Mm-hmm. And the reason they're more nutritionally dense is because you're essentially getting your food out of living soils that are filled with a wide range of microbiology. Right. In the same way that our body needs microbes to help assimilate nutrients, right. Plants also need those microbes in the soil. And there's a symbiotic relationship between the plant's roots and the fungi and the bacteria. Those bacteria and fungi are actually helping that plant to uptake the vitamins and minerals. The fungi actually reach out further and mine minerals out of the soil, bring those minerals back to the roots. In exchange, the roots feed the fungi and the bacteria's exudates or sugars. Wow. So again, there's a symbiotic relationship.
Right, and everything's working so nicely together.
Correct. When you kill the soil with pesticides, herbicides, chemical fertilizers, you might have a big, fat, what looks like a juicy vegetable, a head of lettuce. It's mostly water. There's not a lot of vitamins and minerals in there. Right. So I almost advise people to eat less food, but they eat more potent, more nutritionally dense vegetables, and of course the best way to get those are fresh out of the garden.
That's awesome. Well, if you have the luxury of getting them fresh out of the garden, and that's kind of a good idea. So what about, maybe our viewers who live in a smaller apartment space or something? I know that when I've lived in a little small space with a little lanai or porch outside, I've had some tomatoes and a little bit of herbs growing and things like that. And some of our viewers are in colder climates. They don't have year-round sunshine like we're so blessed with here, right? But, so for the average person, what would you suggest? A little window garden or anything they could do at home? Mm-hmm. Herbs or things like that?
Yeah, in general, if you have a small amount of space, the best things to grow are your culinary herbs. And the reason that is because culinary herbs are filled with antioxidants. They're filled with vitamins and minerals, almost a more compact way than vegetables. So if you only have a little bit of space, grow the stuff that's going to aid with your health. The other thing about culinary herbs is you use them all the time, or you should use them all the time. And if they're close by your windowsill, you're going to grab that. You're going to have that fresh food. You can add it. If you think back to the old ideal American farm, it wasn't just a GMO cornfield.
Right.
Those farms were diverse. They always had an orchard.
Right.
They always had a quarter acre to acre garden to feed the family. There was canning, there was bread baking, there was a windrow that protected the grain crop, there was livestock, there was poultry. So again, the diversity is the resiliency. Diverse systems like that mimic ecology and they regenerate the soil, and that's the direction we need to be moving.
I absolutely agree because monocrop farming has just proven to be oh, I don't want to say a failure, like that's not, but maybe not optimal long term, because then you're trying to re-nourish the soil, you have to let the land lay fallow, you're only producing one crop, and so if you can get this synergistic system going, it sounds like you can have enough yield. I mean, I've heard that that's always kind of a problem when you're talking about commercial type farming, where you're trying to feed a large population, or if you're thinking of food as a commodity, something like that, that might not be ideal. Our current model just might be a little bit, warped in a way. I mean, I don't know, I don't want to.
Yeah, I mean, monocultures from the perspective of production have been hugely successful. You know, chemical fertilizer, hybrids, we've seen the largest grain harvest ever, but at what expense? Well, we're losing our forests. Right. We're losing our rivers, we're losing our watersheds. And what monocultures leave in their wake is they leave wastelands. Mm-hmm. They leave denuded landscapes that are basically deserts with no life, no biology. And so can permaculture feed the world? I would say yes. And actually the science is there that permaculture farming, biointensive farming, diversified agriculture gives more nutrition and more yields per acre than monocultures. And that research has been done.
Right. So I like what you're saying, and I always think about the Hippocratic Oath, you know, first do no harm. And so you said at what expense? So that can almost be applied to farming. It sounds like, you know, at what expense? What's the trade-off, and what's the long-term trade-off? And if we're thinking about in the moment, that's one thing, but if we're thinking about the next generation and the generation after, you know, what are we actually leaving behind for our children and for the next generations, right? So also saying like fresh from the garden, and I want to like bring this home because I know this is a concept in herbal medicine. I have, you know, my background in herbal medicine, but you know, that idea of really getting your foods from local sources, and we've seen a really like wonderful renaissance with you know, farmers market,
CSA.
Exactly. Yeah. So you would definitely recommend for people to shop local, support their local farmers, correct?
Yeah, there's a movement happening all across the country of, I mean, frankly, people are sick and tired of eating the same kind of, you know, American fare and processed foods, and it's actually making people ill. So people are waking up, they're like, oh my God, I have diabetes, I have obesity, I have hypertension, I have heart disease. And the crazy thing is that food can actually heal you and reverse these conditions. You know what I mean?
If you have the right
if
food,
you have the right quality food. So we're talking about pasture-raised animals, you know, that are rotationally grazed. Again, a regenerative approach to livestock management. We're not talking about feedlots. And same with you know, small holdings, small gardens, and you know, in Ayurvedic medicine and Chinese medicine, right? When you harvest something fresh, it actually has the life force too. It's got that chi, that energy, that vitality, that mana that's going to really bring vitality to your body.
So mana is a Hawaiian word, and it's very similar to chi, or like what you would say to prana and Ayurveda, right? This like life force energy, this vibrant like deliciousness. I don't know if you've ever had a chance to eat anything like fresh out of the garden, but it's and then when you've like dug your hands in the dirt and grown it, and it's just so rewarding, and it brings that like interconnected relation back to like the earth, to be in so much gratitude. I really feel that having that experience of understanding what it takes to produce food, because it's not an easy task. I mean, there's a lot of things that love and care that go into producing food, and understanding that connection between the hands that grow the food and all that labor and love, and then when you finally do, you get your little flower, and then your little fruit comes, and you keep the worms off of it, and then you get to bite into it. I mean, that is so like satisfying.
Yeah, and humans have become very disconnected from the earth that sustains us, from the ecological systems that provide our water. And so by entering back into the garden, back into nature, we know there's all these health benefits, right? Greater peace, greater tranquility, you know, more joy. And it's
fresh air, being outdoors, enjoying the sunshine, right?
And when they did the Blue Zone study, studying people all around the world that live to be 100 years old, centenarians, right? They figured out a lot of them are gardening. And a lot of them garden and they eat high diets rich in fruits and vegetables. They eat more legumes. They consume small amounts of meat. And these are the people that are living to be 100. So again, that connection with nature, being in the garden, working the land. You know how many young people we've hosted on the farm, how many adults we've hosted on our land, and we see total transformation over a 6-week period. They're working, sweating, drinking the fresh water, eating 100% organic, mostly local food. I mean, you're talking about radical detox. Their skin gets more clear. They look brighter. Their eyes look brighter. You know what I mean? They get a little farm fit, we call it, right? They're a little more cut up, you know? And I always feel like the farm, whatever they need, it's like if you need to gain a little weight, lose a little weight, the farm kind of helps with that.
The farm will do it for you. Spend some time on the farm. So, real quick before we go, so you have some education programs. You invite people to come and stay, to do workshops. If they want to learn more about some of these programs, your website, share.
That's right, yeah. At our main farm and estate, we host farm-to-table dinners, farm field trips, and farm stays, and that's at starseedranch.com. And again, we've hosted people from all over the world on our farm for these kind of transformational experiences, just enjoying the land. And if you're interested in supporting more of our community work, which is our youth education programs, the KUHR Food Hub, you can learn more about our nonprofit organization at HIP Agriculture, hipagriculture.org.
Wow. Thank you. It was such a pleasure having you. I
Such a
really
pleasure,
appreciate it. Aloha.
Aloha.
Visit KoriGaila.com and schedule your wellness consultation to receive a custom-designed, scientifically sound behavior action plan that is holistically based. Browse the website and enjoy free articles and valuable health and beauty information. Receive your free holistic skincare ebook, KoriGaila.com.
Many people are searching for answers to health challenges. There are natural solutions for a healthy and empowered lifestyle that can be delivered right to your door. Email Carol at carolbirchwell.com and type Health with Kori in the subject line to receive a free ebook on essential oils. Visit carolbirchwell.com and connect with Carol via email for your free ebook. She will help you find the natural solutions that work specifically for you.
Thank you again for joining me this week. I'm so happy you were able to spend this little bit of time with me. I hope you found this interesting and informative. Until I see you again, stay happy, stay healthy. Aloha.